What if you could serve 25 clients per day and still have time to launch a product line, teach globally, and build a massive brand? Today on the Salon Scoop, we're talking to the legendary Candy Shaw, also known as the BalayLama. She's not only the world's top balayage educator, but also a salon owner, an absolute content powerhouse, an entrepreneur who's redefining what's possible for stylists in our industry. So if you're ready to scale your chair, your brand, or your vision, this episode is going to blow your mind. Stick around. Welcome to the Salon Scoop, a podcast by Salon S.O.S. I'm your host, Scott Moon, the founder of Salon S.O.S., and I'm obsessed with helping salon professionals live their best life. In this show, we shop talk all things salon to bring you real-life stories, debates, entertainment, and inspiration to help you find happiness and success in this beautiful industry. If you work in the salon industry in any capacity, this podcast is open to you. So set down your scissors or rinse out that toner and let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I am so excited for today's episode. We have an incredible guest here to share with us wisdom that you have probably never heard before. The one and only Candy Shaw, who is just coming off fresh a NAHA 2025 award for the top educator of the year. Candy, thank you so much for taking some time to be on the show with us today.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for that great intro.
Yeah, well, I want to start right away actually with that NAHA victory, because I know that's it's a huge honor. It's not something that you have to, do a photo shoot for and whatnot. Like you're sort of selected. But tell us about that. Was that your first Educator of the Year NAHA award, and what was that like for you, coming from all of your years of education that you've been giving the industry?
Well, it was my first NAHA. It was not my first time to ever win Educator of the Year. There's obviously other award categories and other award things, but I like to think of NAHA as the Oscars of hairdressing.
For sure.
I've been going since I was a little girl. My father was a competition hairdresser, a world champion, and going to an award show was something that I grew up doing. And I think winning Educator of the Year at 61 years old was a wonderful feeling to just be sort of vindicated for a lifetime of work that I've put in the classroom. It's difficult when you're graded on let's call it collection. A collection of the year may change with trends, but education is something that is subject to opinion too, but it's something that we all need. And my heart and soul in the classroom, seeing that being rewarded by my peers was really awesome.
Well, it's no secret that you have been an amazing educator and giving so much for so many years. For those who follow, we highlighted Candy's Instagram account last year in our top 10 Instagram education accounts to follow. Please make sure that you are following along right now. Candy, why don't you give everybody your Instagram handle so that we can add on to the 110,000 followers that you already have on your socials?
Well, I am at the BalayLama, like TheBalayLama, and I got that from a student in my classroom who used to call me. I would say to me, like, "You're like the Dalai Lama of hair," and so that's how it kind of came. I had a love for hair cutting for my whole career. I have an academy in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've taught French hair cutting. But when I launched my brand Sunlights and became the first authority of balayage education, I was actually named that. So my Instagram was named by a student long before I even knew what I was doing.
That's
On Instagram,
fantastic.
that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's definitely an amazing follow. So everybody out there, we certainly encourage you to follow along all the amazing education and content that Candy shares. so worthwhile. So many nuggets that you'll be able to take from and learn. Candy, you mentioned kind of your early stages. I want to just quickly get into that. You've been in the industry your whole life. I think third generation stylist in your family. What's your first memory of being in a salon, and how did you know that this was really the path that you want to continue in your family traditions?
Well, I've never known anything but a salon. My father obviously was a hairdresser for over 60 years before he finally retired. My mother was a makeup artist. My home was always filled with some of the great iconic people in our industry, the forefathers and foremothers in our industry. So I've never not known hairdressing. I like to tell everybody, however, I never went to beauty school, never went to college. I was cutting hair in the locker room of my high school at the age of 13 and trade for math homework, and that is a true story. So I've never not known the salon. I used to ride my bike to my daddy's salon when I was a young kid and fill the Coke machine, sweep the floor, fold the towels. It's just been a part of my fabric my whole life.
Do you remember an early salon icon that you got to meet at a young age that really had an impact on you?
Well, I mean, I could the list is endless. I mean, between Horst Reckelbacker, Vidal Sassoon, John and Susie Chadwick, the Paul Mitchell, the list goes on and on. John Sahag, I mean, all of them. I mean, there's just been so many. I've been very fortunate because back in those days, there was no social media. No one sat around and looked at everybody's Instagram account or Facebook account. They actually broke bread together. They stayed in each other's homes. They were all dirt poor and didn't have two nickels to rub together. And together, they collectively created brands, created opportunities, created wonderful, budding, successful salons. And so I've been very fortunate through just my father's early upbringing and then the organization of Intercoiffure. Those things really helped me to see the world from uh, I guess, from backstage, if you will, is seeing the hairdressing world from the backstage view versus sitting in the audience. And so I was very lucky to do that.
For sure. And I think having that different perspective has probably really given you the vision, right, to see how you can go beyond what a traditional career path might look like in our industry. And that's one of the things that we'd love to try to delve into today to help people see beyond what might be their limiting beliefs about what's possible for them in the industry. And you've been able to achieve and accomplish so much. Let's start with just your life behind the chair, because you still today are working behind the chair despite all the things that you're doing from an education standpoint, from a brand company standpoint. You talked about, and we'll get into that. And from my understanding is that you see sometimes up to 25 guests a day with your massive team of assistants, which would just seem completely out of the realm of possibility for an everyday stylist out there who sometimes struggle to even see 5 or 6 clients per day. So could you share with us how maybe that evolution worked for you to be able to see more and more clients, and how you actually structure your time and team to make that possible, to give people out there a vision for how they could potentially grow when they think that maybe they've reached their capacity?
Well, look, there's a lot of different ways to get to the end of the day, right? Some people choose to work with smaller amounts of people, higher price points. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. There's no right or wrong answer. I want to make sure that I say that to your listeners. It's just what is in your DNA. What's your groove? What's your music? What's your culture? And through French cutting and balayage, both of those techniques are extremely efficient and very fast. They're very different from the conventional methodology that we learn in beauty school, which is learning a palm to palm parametric type of cutting where it's very slow, very methodical. So, how I work is a very quick haircut type of skill set. And painting hair is half, if not more than half, of the time of foiling hair. So being able to do those two systems very effectively, certainly with a team of folks who help do some of the, if you think of a great restaurant, the chef is not bussing the table, taking the meal out, taking the order, taking the money. We work in tandem, and we've created a culture of teamwork, and that culture has been able to afford me the ability to be that, that doctor in a hospital seeing lots of patients, or that chef in a restaurant seeing lots of people. It does not cut down on the quality of what I'm doing. As a matter of fact, it probably raises the quality, because the people who are trained to do certain aspects of what we do are really focused on that aspect. And so we have a great system, and I would recommend to any of your listeners have shadow days that you can actually come and spend the day with me at the chair and watch it in motion, because a lot of people are naysayers and don't really want to believe that you could do that and that it's really not possible, or they think that it's just, crappy work or shoddy work because you're going, fast and you're doing so many people. But it's just a different mindset. And, you have to listen to everybody's music. And a lot of folks out there do it differently than I do. And, I applaud everyone's success. At the end of the day, if you're successful, more power to you, and how you're getting there. That's a wonderful thing. But if you are of the mindset of a 5 to 7 client a day, I think you have to ask yourself, that's wonderful. But what I don't like to hear is a student tell me in the classroom, oh, I'm booked through the end of the year. And they tell me that in February. And I say, well, why would you do that? Because if you really think about it, I look at my day like how I buy an airline ticket. You've got a first class seat, you've got a comfort seat, you've got a comfort plus, and you've got a main cabin. And so I sell the appointment of the day to the highest paying person, the best appointment of the day. I don't open myself up for anybody to just plop on and disrupt my day and the flow of my day. So you have to understand, if you're going to do 25 people, or 20 to 25 people, you're going to need to have the flow of the day managed accordingly. It's not just throw the noodle to the wall and see what sticks. It's very calculated. And, I spend a lot of time intentionally booking a day, because I'm not at the chair, but 2 to 3 days a week in the salon, to booking the day to ride in its most stress-free fashion, I guess is a way to put it. So it's definitely a different mindset, though.
Let's delve into that mindset a little bit deeper and think about the stylist out there who does tell you, "Oh, I'm booked throughout the whole year," or they say, they want to grow, but they feel like they're maxed out, right? So, what would you say to them in terms of what mindset shift is needed to help break free from that and see how they can grow beyond what they feel is their limit?
Well, there's two things in our industry right now that are the hot topics. Number one is value, pricing, value, and number two is self-care. It's a very much an important thing to maintain great self-care and great mindset mentally, physically. Our job is a very hard, laborious job, so we have to take care of that. But what I would say to anybody that says that they're maxed out is that they're not charging enough. And they're not running their business on a tipping point of understanding the value of their time versus the value of what they charge. Most stylists, and I've been at this for 45 years, I just celebrated my 45th year at the chair. Most stylists don't charge enough. Now, having said that, I do want to say to your listeners out there that you can't just demand more money just because you've been in the industry for a certain amount of time, especially when some folks let Casual Friday be Monday through Sunday. You can't show up in bedazzled sweatpants and your hair on top of your head and call yourself a beauty authority and charge premium pricing. If you want to charge premium pricing, you've got to look it, act it, be it, create systems around it, create a script around it. And so I would say to you, let's start with your chair. Look around your surroundings. What are people seeing? What are they buying? What's important? I come into my salon about once every quarter and I sit in every single chair on a Sunday and I look around and I see what's wrong, what needs to be corrected, and I see it through the eyes of the guest. And I think it's important to really call yourself on the carpet more often as to how you could upgrade the value of those services.
Love that. So critical. I think it's almost, doing a putting yourself in the customer's shoes, something that we don't do often enough to really look at what do they what do they see, what do they want, what's important to them. Too often we're just focused inward on, what we want, how we want to live our day. And I think that mindset shift right there and is so critical to success, is really being able to see things from the customer standpoint and provide the best possible experience and value that's going to deliver on what they need, what they want out
Right. I
there.
mean, there's that old saying of, under promise and over deliver. And I think we need to get back to the basics of that. We've gotten a little bit greedy. I'm going to be honest. This industry with social media and the things that have gone on, we're all saying things like, well, I don't work this and I don't do that. And I don't. We're full of a lot of I don'ts. And I think the people who are really going to succeed are the ones that I do. And it's not crowded at the top. It's pretty easy to be successful. I think you just have to take a long, hard look at yourself in the mirror, and what you're putting out is what you're getting back. And ultimately, for me, I am in the melting pot of the hottest place in Atlanta, Georgia, the most expensive area in Atlanta, but I don't charge a ridiculous amount of, I mean, for the BalayLama, for a 45-year girl, I think I am totally on point and on trend as to where I should be. I see folks out there, charging some of these prices, and I think to myself, would you rather have a lot of a little thing or a little of a lot thing? Like you have to manage that as a salon owner, and you have to make those decisions accordingly.
Makes sense. All right, let's delve into the Ballet Lama and your education role, I guess, as what you're delivering to the industry. How did you go from being, just probably a great stylist, behind the chair as your full-time thing, and shifting to becoming an educator and ultimately, the world's leading balayage educator today? Take us through that evolution.
Well, I started teaching a long, long time ago, actually almost 30 years ago. I started teaching French cutting because I had learned it. I spent time as a young kid when I first graduated high school in Paris, and I had the ability to break bread with some of the greatest French hairdressers out there for a short stint of my career. And I came back and kind of Americanized French cutting. So my first love was French cutting, and I have to say that because even though I'm known for painting hair, they're a perfect marriage. How we cut hair before we paint hair was something that was a really big philosophy of mine that I wanted to continue to develop. And so by Americanizing that French cutting, I slowly started to work my way into painting hair because, I was painting hair before painting hair was cool. I mean, people thought I was nuts. I've been balayaging hair for over 25 years, and everyone's was pulling hair through a cap or through a foil. So how the how I began was through my French cutting, and then it just sort of morphed into balayage education. But I'll tell you sort of a little dirty secret. I used to import all of my lightener from Paris because I lived there. I had those connections. And one day my product dried up, no pun intended, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to I've got to figure out how to do this. And I was teaching it, and then I needed a product to support my teachings, because I was literally bootlegging a bag to my students of all of my curated favorites, and I was putting in the bag the little things that I loved in balayage painting. And I am from Georgia. The natural resource in Georgia is red Georgia clay. And I knew they used clay in cosmetics. I knew they used it in other forms of porcelains and printing. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I try to create a balayage lightener with clay in it. And, we were the OG of the first lightener to market that had Kaolite technology, which was clay. And because I'm from Georgia, I just knew about clay so much because it was our natural resource. And I grew up going to the lake and stepping in the hard clay on the outside and the soft clay in the middle. And so I just, like a crazy idea, I just said, hey, I think I'm going to try this. So I've sent it to R&D for a couple of years and worked really, really hard on perfecting it. And I have to say, I literally took this leap of faith for my salon. I didn't do it necessarily to create Sunlight's the brand. I just wanted to create it for my salon because I have found a niche of something I needed. I was correcting a problem, so to speak. So I took, my own money and put it behind it, and prayed that, I figured if it didn't work, I could just use it in my own salon, and the rest is history. Sunlight's was birthed in that moment, and now we have products and Moonlights, which is for foiling, and that's kind of how I became the balayage or the BalayLama, is because then I had to teach on behalf of my brand more and more and more, and I had to get out there because it's one thing to sell someone a pair of scissors. We all know how to cut hair,
Yeah.
but no one knew how to paint hair properly. And I knew I had to create a curriculum around it, and being a teacher was what I was all along.
Interesting, fascinating story. How it started from the actual product first, which brought you into then educate behind it, and then ultimately on this entire technique. A lot of stylists out there are they dream about becoming an educator. They want to educate, whether it's on person, in person on stages, or through social media. But not everybody is cut out for it. What would you say are some of the keys to success to being a good educator in our industry?
Cut the crap. I got to say it. I feel like there's just so much noise out there. There's just so many ways to twirl and whirl. And, people need fundamental things that truly are sustainable, that truly help them at the chair tomorrow. It's easy to get smoke and mirror and just do all kinds of little things to try to wow you. People say to me, well, Candy, you only have 110 followers. I go, yeah, but I have 110 believers. That to me is more important than having 500,000 followers because I'm making noise that's not really relevant. And so I would say to anyone wanting to be an educator out there, just be authentic, be yourself, teach somebody, help somebody, do things with kindness, really have people's best interest in mind, and try not to focus on just the money. You've been in this industry a long time. You've worked for a really big company, so I can tell you this. I'm an education brand. I'm an education company that education was the core of who I was. It wasn't like I created a product and then went and found the guest artist to teach it, And so I would say to anybody, if you are in love with a culture, go call that culture, that brand, those people, and say, look, I want to learn more. I want to be a part of this. And if you want to create something on your own, certainly you can do that as well. But I think the people that really succeed are the ones that are true. They're just true to their craft. They're true to who they are. They don't listen to so much noise. They don't try to be exactly like the other. They're just themselves. And that's really what's carried me through my career.
I think that's such great advice because from my experience in the industry, the ones that really do a great job as educators, and I've told them personally, is the people who are super humble, because they're not there doing it for the vanity metrics of being up on stage and being the popular person. They're doing it because they genuinely care about helping a fellow stylist. And so I would say you've got to look inward really to identify what's the reason why you want to become an educator, why you want to teach,
Okay.
and be honest with yourself. you know
Well, I'll
is
tell
what
you an interesting fun fact about Candy Shaw that you probably don't know. as many classrooms that I've been in, I mean, I'm in the classroom all the time. I'm all over. I get asked by every trade show to do main stage. I get asked by every single one, hey, we really want you to do a main stage. We really want you to do main stage. And I always say to them, main stage is just not my jam. I'm not up, with crazy clothes and crazy things and trying to wow my audience to try to show them that, put my ego out there. I'm, if you want a main stage with somebody who's going to give you fundamentals and education and come out there and really teach you something, I'm your girl. But I'm better in the classroom because that's where I'm holding hands. I'm helping people. I'm finding out their problems. I'm helping solve their problems, and I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it for the ego. It really, awards they're fleeting. To me, where I really get my payment in life is when someone DMs me or calls me or comes up with a tear rolling down their face going, you saved my salon, you saved my career, you taught me this 10 years ago and it has totally changed my trajectory of my business. Balayage can triple your bottom line. I know that for a fact because it did it in my own 50 chair salon in Atlanta. So with all those things said, if you really want to be an educator, if you're in it for the accolades, yeah, you're not going to last long because they're just going to gobble you up. And no offense to brands, because I've got some fantastic brands in my salon, but educators are a dime a dozen for them. They come and they go, and they'll find the next new shiny thing. And so you got to do it for yourself. That's really where the magic happens.
Love that. Great words of advice there. You shared with us the story behind your product line that you created, Sunlight's Balayage. I think that's great. A lot of, again, stylists or salon owners have thought about creating their own line of products. There are some advantages in there, from a product margin standpoint. And I believe that some like the vanity aspect of it as well, which we just sort of touched upon that. What's one thing that most, say, stylists or salon owners don't realize, some challenge about launching a product line that you would want to, heed warning to?
Well, first of all, it takes a lot of sleepless nights. A lot of no's. I've said to people, like, if you haven't told me no, you're probably a nobody. Because you get a lot of doors slammed in your face. You get a lot of disappointment before, it's a slow burn. It's a slow launch. I don't want to discourage anybody from doing it, but you definitely have to have, a nice war chest to get in there and to get with it, because it definitely takes a lot of money, takes a lot of hard earned time and effort, and a lot of failure. It is not a rocket ship. You don't just launch a product and rocket ship to the moon. Yes, we hear those stories, and they, we all have the green-eyed monster, because we have that envy monster, like, oh, look at that. I mean, my gosh, there's such a great brand, and look how quick they built. But that's a small margin of our industry. When you look at the really big brands, they got 100 years under their belt. They got a long lineage and a lot of deep pockets. So I would say get your story together, because no brand will launch, period, without a great story behind it. So if you've got a great story, fantastic. You're already part of the way there. That's been, my secret sauce is to my story of being a salon owner, being an educator, also a daughter of a world champion. And I guess, that has helped me more than just the teach.
Love that. All right, we want to get into a little bit of your social media presence and success, but I'm going to pause here and take a quick break to throw you some rapid fire fun questions if you're up for it, Candy.
Love it.
All right, a couple of quick questions here. We've talked a lot about French cutting and balayage, kind of your two paths of education. What gets you more excited to teach?
Currently, French cutting, because
And
the
what,
art of the haircut is back.
nice. Okay. What's the favorite city that you've traveled to for an education event?
Probably Sydney, Australia.
Hmm. Far, the land far, far away. You are notorious for being Sarah Jessica Parker's stylist for many years amongst a whole threshold of other celebrities. I'm curious if there was one celebrity that you have not done their hair that you've always wanted to, who would that be?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I really don't have one. I mean, to be honest, I don't sit around and think about that. But I've done a lot of work in the country music world. I did Carrie Underwood's wedding. I've done a lot of those types of things. But like, I don't really have one, to be honest.
That's fair. That's fair. Thought I might stump you there, but all right. Let's talk about. Do you have a personal mantra that you kind of work with?
Yes, show up on time, ready to work. The 7 words to success.
Oh, love that. Love that. I find that you are distinctive in your look with your yellow glasses. Is that on purpose for part of your personal image and brand?
1000%. People ask me, why yellow? And I say, sunlights. Yellow. The first thing you drew on the paper as a child was the sun, and the sun was yellow. So, yes, I am the woman of yellow, and it is very intentional.
Love that. Love that. Always be intentional, people. Last one here as we lead our way into social media reels or stories. What's your biggest obsession when it comes to content for Instagram?
Well, I will say, like I said before, I'm a little bit of an old school girl because I just celebrated my 61st birthday. So it's taken me a while to get better at reels. I do enjoy watching them a lot more than just stories. But as far as what Candy creates, I think it's would probably have to be the story.
Love it. All right, so let's delve into that a little bit. We want to talk about your social media influence because that's a big place where probably the majority of people feel like they're connecting with you and getting value from you from all of your content. You've obviously built a massive presence over time and are one of the most published stylists in the world in terms of your images just being utilized everywhere. What is your content strategy like? How do you create, what's your purpose behind your content strategy?
You know, One of the things that I want to say is I fought social media tooth and nail 10, 12 years ago. Every single thing about it just really aggravated me, how to do it, how to use it, how to leverage it, all those things, the digital aspect of it. And my son, who is a 35-year-old who knows this business in and out and runs all the logistics of our company, said to me, Mom, you don't have to be good at it, you just have to participate. So, what is my content strategy? It's participation. And it's not trying to be perfect in the moment, just be in the moment and give people who you are through that moment. I try to keep anything out of it that's negative. I will not go down the negativity rabbit hole. I try to make my content extremely positive, kind, gracious, giving, forgiving, in all of those ways. I want people to know who Candy Shaw is as the person, because ultimately, when you look at what I've done with my social media, I'm trying to build a brand and a culture versus trying to get clients in my chair. So there's two different ways to approach social media versus being a stylist who's looking for new guests versus Candy who's looking for her student in the classroom, or somebody who she can reach out and help, or someone who's going to carry her product. So my strategy is definitely different than those who leverage social media as an influencer and do a lot of brand hopping, so that they can tag various things. That's certainly not my wheelhouse, simply because I'm not building anyone's brand but my own.
Makes sense. How would you recommend to stylists out there that they treat their content differently, whether they are speaking to potential clients or potential other stylists, from an education standpoint, maybe trying to get them into a classroom? How should they be treating their content differently in those two avenues?
I think you should have two different accounts. If you want a personal account to put your family and your dog and your vacation and those kinds of things, I don't put anything on my wall that's personal. I only put that in stories. I use Facebook as a means of Candy Shaw the person. Yes, I of course put education. Yes, of course I do things like that as well. But if you want to get to know Candy Shaw the person, you want to jump on over into Facebook land. And in Instagram world, stories are fleeting. They come, they go, they're quick, they're instant, hence Instagram. So for me, it's absolutely fine to put things like that up in the corner, I call it, But when you put something in the cookies and you put it on your wall, it's there to stay. So you have to really think about what it is you're posting and what you want out of it. How is it moving the needle for you? So if you're having a struggle between who I am as a stylist, who I want to be as an educator, and who I am as a mom, a person, a wife, or a husband, or whomever, I would say to divide and conquer.
Makes sense. Sometimes that's just what you have to do. You talk about stories, doing a lot of stories. What are some of the things, some of the content that you tend to put in stories as it relates to, you talked about your strategy is a little bit more about just kind of building your brand through social. So how does that convey into the content that you tend to put out in stories, using this as an education piece for others out there who are maybe trying to build their personal brand? What would be the recommendation for content to put in stories?
Well, I think people love little tips and tricks. Certainly, they love seeing things quickly. Let's face it, we've all gotten into this instant world. I mean, we could order something in the morning from Amazon and it can be on our doorstep by the afternoon. So everyone wants instant answers. So I would say to you, like, if you were out there and building content, just think about what you need in the moment and put that to your audience in the moment. Like, it's really interesting to me. The things that sometimes I go to teach, or the things that I need to maybe teach my staff a little bit more, maybe I need to work on a little bit more. As the saying goes, the teacher learns more than the student. So a lot of times you'll find things in my stories that are things I'm working on, that I need to personally get better at, right? And if you take out the perfection piece, that your post is not going to be perfect and people are going to look at it and think this or that about you, you got to quit that, because, comparison is the thief of joy. And so I always say, quit comparing yourself to others. Just be who you are. And the people that love you will love you. And the people that don't will scroll on.
Hmm. Very well said. Very well said. Candy, you've been at this for quite some time now. Have obviously achieved a lot of success in the industry, and I'd like to touch upon a little bit the legacy component of what you have built and what you hope to sort of leave behind. What does success look like for you now, and maybe how does that compare to what it looked like earlier on in your career?
I thought long and hard about this question because it's a very loaded question, and how I look back on my career. But I think the simple answer is, today I'm only competitive with myself, not with others. Back in earlier in my career, I was competitive with others. And that might not really sit with some that are early in their stages of their career. I mean, we're all competitive in our own right. But I just remember focusing so hard on doing better than others, that I kind of lost the joy of just where I was in the moment. So if I look at my success in the moment, yeah, you win a great award, you do great things, but the true competition is within me. What can I do better tomorrow? What is my best version of myself? And I focus more on on the real time joy and the real time who I am, real time, than to lose, sight of what could have been, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas of the world, and back and earlier in my career, it was always the shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Makes sense. Perspective changes over time, right?
Yes, it does. 45 years, it'll definitely change you.
Yeah, it's for those that have kids and teenagers. Sometimes they think they know everything, and you're trying to say, what, you're going to see things differently. Eventually, they can't see it in the moment, but our perspective does change over time, and it's important for us to realize that. If we're in our 20s, if we're in our 30s, our perspective is going to change as well. And if we can be somewhat conscious of that in advance and open ourselves up to
Hmm.
different ideas and scenarios, it might help us actually get there a
Said.
little bit faster.
Well said. My dad used to say, the trouble with your generation, and this is back when I was a young hairdresser, is you won't listen to my music, but I'll listen to yours. And I never understood what that meant until now, because there's a lot to be learned from, our forefathers, foremothers, the people of wisdom. Like my branding has changed through the years because now I'm the woman of wisdom. Before I was just clawing and fighting, trying to get there and trying to prove that, but if you have a sustainable career and you stay at it long enough, eventually people are going to listen to your music, and they're going to learn from it.
Love that. You've won countless awards, over the years. You've headlined, global education shows and events. You've obviously educated thousands upon thousands of people. If you were to sit back and just reflect on it all, what is, maybe one moment is the hardest, but what's something that's been the most meaningful for you in your journey that you really take away from the most?
Well, I again put some thought into this question, and I think the most meaningful moment for me personally was being able to work on the stage with my father and do a hair show with my father, and for him to be recognized in front of his peers at Intercoiffure for a Lifetime Achievement Award, and us doing a show together. That was like, looking back on that, I probably didn't appreciate it as much in the moment, but looking back on it, it's something that I will hold dear into my hairdressing journey. Being recognized recently for this award, again, NAHA is such a big honor. But I think what really made it the best honor of all is that my family was there, the people that love and support me were there, the people that knew the hours that I'd put into the classroom, helped to celebrate that. And just kind of being recognized for hard work, really to me, not just a haircut, not just a balayage, not just a pretty girl that you created or a pretty look that you created, but being recognized for hard work, that's probably also a very meaningful moment on my journey.
I love that moment with your father that you shared. You mentioned that you have a son who's in the business side. Do you have any children who are service providers in the industry today?
So I have a daughter-in-law that's my top stylist in my salon. She's also my hairdresser and my balayage painter. My
Nice.
son runs Sunlight's Professional and all of our education and logistics. My husband is the CFO of our companies, and he has a law background, so it's very freeing to sleep with counsel, if you know what I mean. But he's that side of it. I have some nieces that are in the industry. I have a new niece that wants to get into the industry, so there's definitely that legacy there. I have two other children that did not go into the industry, but there's still time. Who knows, right? But nonetheless, my uncle was my dad's partner in the industry. My aunt was a makeup artist. My mother was a makeup artist. My other aunts were in sales for beauty products. I mean, our lineage is pretty deep and
It
vast.
runs deep. That's fantastic. Well, Candy, I want to acknowledge you for all of the, I guess, selflessness that you have displayed, over your career to be giving back to the industry. And I can understand where it comes from. You've shared it very eloquently in your stories with us. You were given so much at a young age by being surrounded, right, by not only family, but those opportunities that you spoke about earlier in the episode. And it's wonderful to see that you have been kind of on your own personal journey to give that back, right, to the next generation, to continue to ensure that our industry prospers and grows. And I think it's incredible that you continue to do what you're doing at such a high level for so long, and do it in a humble and serving way to others in the industry. And we are all extremely grateful for what you, have been giving and continue to give, and certainly extremely deserving of that most recent, award at the NAHA's Education of the Year, but everything else that you've done. So I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for everything that you give to the industry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. To those who are out there, I would say just give with your hand down, expecting nothing in return. You'll live a really happy life, just giving back. And I just want to leave this industry in a better place than I found it. Not that it was in a bad place, but that's what my legacy is, the last haircut I teach, the last balayage I paint. That's just what I want to be known for. So I appreciate you allowing me to share my story. And I hope that somebody out there has been touched by some knowledge that perhaps gives them the inspiration to keep on going, because this industry is difficult. There's no doubt about it. And it can get the best of you some days, but there's a lot more joy than there is a bad. So stick it out and continue to give back.
Unbelievable. It's fantastic advice for everybody in our industry, whether you're just starting out, whether you have, been in it for a while, but, feeling stuck or in a rut. Candy Shaw, ladies and gentlemen, amazing to have you on the show today, and what incredible wisdom you've shared. Thank you again for your time. It's clearly about, giving of yourself, having the mindset to provide that value and experience to your customer, put your customers first, but at the same time, rethink what's possible, shift your perspective about what's possible for yourself, because success can be defined in many, many ways in our industry. And Candy's journey is clearly an example that there are many different paths that you can go down. And if you're extremely ambitious like Candy, you can do them all.
No,
I think that
it's not easy being a unicorn, I'll admit.
So if you feel inspired by this episode, please feel free to share it with somebody who might need a little boost, a little kick in the butt. And as always, everybody, keep creating, keep leading, and keep building the career that is true to you. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to the Salon Scoop podcast. This show is produced by Salon S.O.S, a digital marketing agency by industry professionals for industry professionals. If you want simple and affordable solutions for any of your salon marketing needs, such as websites, client loyalty, Google search rankings, social media, or more, come visit us at salonsos.ca or on Instagram at salon.s.o.s. If you want to hear more episodes like this and help us continue to bring the industry great content, it would mean so much to us if you would support us in one of the following ways. Either share this episode with one other industry professional, and rate the show on Spotify, or write us a quick review on Apple Music. We want to hear your feedback. If you have follow-up questions or ideas for future episodes, please reach out. DM us on Instagram at salonus.s.o.s, or hit us up on our website again at salonsos.ca. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go get your hustle on, keep smiling, and we'll catch you on our next episode.